finally got out of a reading slump, and here's how I did it. I didn't realize it until today when I was kind of thinking about making this video, but I think the strategy here was to do things that are easily finished, right? So I got poetry books here, short stories, poetry, prose, and a short novel. Let's talk about all of them. This is The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. I finished it today, this morning actually. This book is incredibly sad. Just a very tragic story. It's like very folkloric in that way. This book really had me just thinking a lot about my own girlhood, things that I internalized growing up. It also made me think a lot about like the judgment between women. This printing of it, I think, is from the 90s, and there is an afterword in it by Toni Morrison where she kind of talks about what she wished she would have done differently in writing the novel, and that was very interesting to me. I can't believe I hadn't read this until now. So some of the characters in this book are a little one note. Even Morrison talks about that in a way in her afterword. I think they're just, in general, Morrison does such a good job in writing characters in a way that they are kind of exaggerated, kind of taken to the nth degree, but in doing that, it makes you see fragments of those people all around you in the world, and to me that's really powerful. I think a lot of, like, especially like the older characters in here, the Breedloves, Claudia, and Frida's mother, I forget her name right now, they are just such like deeply evocative characters. People in my family, people I know and love and grew up with in all different ways. Love this book. I think my favorite Toni Morrison book is still Jazz, which is also a pretty sad and tragic story at times, but this one is just really heavy. I checked this out from the library, but I really think I need to own a copy, so I will be looking into what edition I want to own. I really like this one with the afterword in it, but I'm not the biggest fan of this cover, though it does feel very like early 2000s, which is kind of cool. Next book I have is I Love Shopping by Lauren Cook. I am in the process of finishing my poetry book at the moment and working on a zine. So I really wanted to read like more unconventionally put together books, I guess. And so I picked this one up off of a recommendation from an Instagram story. So if you are posting books on your Instagram story, you know that I am interested in them and I will check it out. Okay, I needed to go find my notes about this book because I kind of forgot my thoughts on it, but this book is a fun Instagram, Twitter elite book, which is what I wrote, if you catch my drift. Like, I was not familiar with the author before I saw, this book on someone's Instagram story, and I actually just went and got the book. I didn't even follow them, but then when I did look into their Instagram, I'm like, oh, all the coolest people that I follow this author and praise his mind. And I'm like, okay, I do get that in parts in here, in some parts lesser so, but it does feel very grown out of that literary Twitter, Instagram space. Here's what else I wrote, which I don't know how much I agree with now, but this was kind of a more off-the-cuff reading of it, so maybe it's more honest. I get that in parts. I also get pee-pee poo-poo humor, which is all like, isn't it ironic I said pee-pee poo-poo in pink Times New Roman font? Because, yeah, pink Times New Roman. Put it in a book, got published by a small press, and you bought it because 1, the book is cute, and 2, you also want to be a part of the Instagram literary elite and live in New York City and shit. So yeah, I'm not even hating, like, it's truly aspirational. However, I think for Black girls, the Instagram literary elite kind of looks different. My social capital has to be built in different ways. I did think this was brilliant in a very interesting way. I do realize that this is not their most recent release, so I think, yeah, this is from 2019. It's originally written back in 2019, so I'm actually curious to read something newer from Lauren. I'm editing, and I did not mention this when I was recording, but I think one of the parts of that book that I loved the most was just the little vignettes describing a very specific person. I love those. They were so imaginative. They were so imaginative for me. Like, I just would read one and I would sit and like think of how they looked in my head and like how their days would go. And I think that's honestly something I love doing when I'm like sitting out at a coffee shop by myself. So it kind of gave me those type of vibes. Like, so also I want to give myself a challenge, like when I go sit at a coffee shop, to kind of like write those or something like that about the people around me that I see, and just see where that takes me. It could be a good basis for some interesting character work in the future. Another poetry prose book. This is Bless the Daughter Raised by a Voice in Her Head by Warshans Shire. I have of course read many of Shire's poetry online. I think in like the mid 2010s they were super like popular. I know they worked with Beyonce around that time, but I hadn't checked out a full collection. I also have my notes here, so I'm looking down. It's truly like my favorite type of poetry, which is incredibly cutting and raw. It maims you, it overtakes you. I truly feel helpless at the feelings that these poems invoke in me, that just spill from the page. Grief, shame, and seeing how the women before you have been treated, and bracing yourself as you start to feel the girl tinge misogyny transition into women tinge misogyny. And somehow, despite your watching, no one quite prepares you for what you're gonna endure. I definitely could have finished this in one sitting, but it took me a couple of days coming back to it just because it is so powerful and emotional. I definitely could have finished The Bluest Eye sooner too, but this book is like incredibly just dense also with feeling, with imagery. It's only 200 pages or 205 pages, just above, but it feels like so rich and deep. But I also don't think it needed to be any longer necessarily. This length of novel actually serves the story very well. Sorry to backtrack a little bit, it just reminded me. Last book I've read recently, I don't think I have notes on it, so I'm just going to talk off the cuff. I did finish this a couple weeks ago, so I'm not super fresh on it, but this is a crazy book. I cannot recommend this in good conscience to anyone because it's incredibly disturbing, but I do think it captures the disturbing nature of our relations, gender relations, sex, like all these things with the internet and new technologies and just the pressures of late stage capitalism, surveillance tech, all those things. This so well captures all the gross things that those forces make us do into a couple short stories. They're disgusting. I honestly started reading this in a weekend that I was just staying at home alone because I was sick, and I was like, this is like the wrong book for that occasion. Like I'm like sneezing on myself. I'm like reading about icky like cum-brained people. Like, I don't know, it was, yeah, I had to put it down, needless to say. But I think it's very well written. I love a disturbing book. Unfortunately, that's how my mind works. So if you're like that, then I would recommend this in good conscience. If you're a normal person, I wouldn't. I mean, I'm looking at the top line review by Gals Harvey, a master comedian, and I did not find this very funny. I guess you could laugh at some of the characters in this book, but they are so pathetic. Like, it's not comedic, it's almost like it's pathetic. Like, like I'm chuckling out of like pity and just like what? I don't know if that sold it to you, but there's that. Oh Lord. Okay, now that now that we've got through what I've been reading recently, I wanted to show y'all the books that I purchased recently. So basically, book haul. Yeah, this is over a couple months. Love you, eBay. Like I said, I'm working on a poetry book, so I'm trying to write at least a poem every single day. And I just cracked into this book, The Poet's Companion by Kim Donizio and Dorian Laux, I guess. I'm just trying to think more about writing in a meta way, and I've never received any like formalized writing instruction besides, you know, grade school. Just using this as inspo to get this book finished. We got a nonfiction. This is Platform Brutality, about the internet and its toxic aspects on society. I'm in like the second chapter of this, and it's pretty good so far. I really like the way that it's written for a nonfiction book. It's very literary, and that's my favorite style of nonfiction book to read. This is Delta Venus Erotica by Anais Nin. I love this edition. It's so pretty. I'm only one story into this, but so far so good. Well, this is my first book of Anais Nin. I do have another one in my hand here. One that I am a good way through is Bluets by Maggie Nelson. Like I said, I'm trying to read more poetry, prose books, just more unconventional books as well. I got interrupted. I don't know where I last left off, besides I was talking about Maggie Nelson's Bluets. This book is amazing so far. I really love it. I feel like this is a book I'm going to come back to many times again. It's incredibly dense, and it's like some of my favorite books where there's just so many references to all different types of media, art, experiences, like books, TV, film, everything. It's a collage centered around the color blue, and I really love it. It's almost a type of book that, because there's not like a clear narrative through line, as soon as I finish it, I feel like I'm going to want to read it again. I probably will finish it tonight. Next, this book with coffee all over it is Department of Speculation by Jenny Oldfield. I haven't started this book yet. I don't remember what exactly spurred me to purchase this book, besides I feel like it's about a marriage that's on the rocks, and I love books like that. I love books about the family sphere, about relationships. Next is Don't Let Me Be Lonely by Claudia Rankine. I read Citizen for class, and I didn't love that book, but I thought it was put together in such an interesting way, and putting together my own book. Like I said, looking for all these interesting references. And this is a book that came up over and over again when I was looking for, you know, more unconventional. And even just looking at it, like the size of it, there's lots of like printed photos in it. I haven't started it yet, but I'm really excited to dig into this, get my head around this form. Next is Lena Dunham's memoir, Fame Say. I have started this. I'm much further in it than this bookmark would lead you on to be, because I've been listening to it on audiobook. I'm cleaning the house, doing dishes, things like that. It's been pretty good. Lena Dunham and I share the same birthday, so I feel some weird kinship with her. Girls is one of my favorite shows ever. I think the characters are just so brilliant in a different way, but in the same vein as Toni Morrison. I feel like her characters, she takes them to the nth degree in such a way that makes us see ourselves and the people around us in the characters in a very interesting way. I think it's been interesting so far to see like what was going on in her life as Girls was premiering, 29 here, Lena in her mid to late 20s, and so I feel like I'm also kind of relating to that weird part of life. I know a lot of people love to hate her. I do too in a certain way, but I also think that she is just so brilliant and such a good writer. I think this book is her coming to terms with a little bit that the things that make her brilliant are the things that make us all so annoyed with her. I think that is something for me to learn myself from my birthday twin. Next is Bone by Yrsa Daley Ward. This is another poetry book. I feel like this is going to be another quite heavy one. Haven't broken into it yet, but it's been on my to-read list for a very, very long time. Next book is by Alice Walker. It is By the Light of My Father's Smile. It's a novel. I actually haven't read any of Alice Walker's novels yet. I haven't read The Color Purple, and I've heard really good things about this, so I'm really excited to dig into it, and I love this beautiful cover. This will probably be the next book I really sink into, the next novel. Lastly, we have another Anais Nin book. This is Henry in June. This is like taken from her novels. I think this is about her experience falling in love with a couple as a bisexual. All of that is very exciting to me, so I am really looking forward to digging in. Yeah, we'll see what the girlies are talking